Jayo Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jayo Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachar Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha Radha Gopi Jana Vallabha Jayo Nitai Patita Pavan Gaura Hari Jayo Nitai Patita Pavan Gaura Hari Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 25, verse number 9. Verse number 8 actually. Tasya tvam tamasondhasya dushparasyadyparagam Satchakshur janmanamante labdham me tvad anugrahat Tasya tvam tamasondhasya dushparasyadyparagam Satchakshur janmanamante labdham me tvad anugrahat Tasya tvam tamasondhasya dushparasyadyparagam Satchakshu janmanam ante labdham me tvad anugrahat. Synonyms. Tasya that, tvam you, tamasaha ignorance, andhasya darkness, dusparasya difficult to cross, adya now, paragam crossing over, sat transcendental, chakshu eye, janmanam of births, ante at the end, labdham attained, me my, tvat anugrahat by your mercy. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Your Lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental eye, which by your mercy only I have attained after many births. Purport. This verse is very instructive since it indicates the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple. The disciple or conditioned soul is put into the darkest region of ignorance and therefore is entangled in the material existence of sense gratification. The disciple or conditioned soul is put into this darkest region of ignorance and therefore is entangled in the material existence of sense gratification. It is very difficult to get out of this entanglement and attain freedom. But if one is fortunate enough to get the association of a spiritual master like Kapila Muni or his representative, then by his grace one can be delivered from the mire of ignorance. The spiritual master is therefore worshipped as one who delivers the disciple from the mire of ignorance with the light of the torch of knowledge. The word paragam is very significant. Paragam refers to one who can take the disciple to the other side. This side is conditioned life, the other side is the life of freedom. The spiritual master takes the disciple to the other side by opening his eyes with knowledge. We are suffering simply because of ignorance. By the instruction of the spiritual master, the darkness of ignorance is removed, and thus the disciple is enabled to go to the other side, which is the side of freedom. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that many, many births one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that after many, many births, one surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, if after many, many births, one is able to find a bona fide spiritual master and surrender to such a bona fide representative of Krishna, one can be taken to the side of light. Om Agyantimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunbalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayan Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsham He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpata Rubhescha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि श्री गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुखम करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्री गुरुदीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम्. Okay, this is right after this chapter is 25th chapter. The name of chapter is Glories of Devotional Service, because Kapila Muni will glorify the path of devotional service. We are here right now. There is a conversation going on between Mother Devahuti and his son, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead's incarnation, Lord Kapila. This is right after like Kardama Muni, once he left the home, his wife, who is Devahuti, was feeling first little bit disheartened because the husband left the home. At the same time, her main concern, as depicted in this chapter, is she want to come out of this material nature, material modes, and she want to be situated transcendentally. She is aware that her son is Supreme Personality of Godhead, and she is asking various questions. And we will see, like past 4 days, we are going to the questions asked by Devahuti to Kadava Muni. And this, just the previous verse, she herself says that you are the self-same Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here she is telling in all humbleness. I mean, imagine the mother is asking the son, but the relationship is quite different because the Lord is there. Just like Arjuna was asking his friend Krishna, but the relationship became quite different when Arjuna surrendered. Likewise, this relationship is transcended of a son and mother, and now the relationship is going on between seeker and the Supreme Lord, and also a seeker and guru. Because just like Krishna is Supreme Lord, but Krishna is acting as as a guru for Arjuna. Likewise, he is Supreme Lord. He is acting like a spiritual master. For Mother Devahuti, like one devotee asked Prabhupada that Arjuna has Krishna, but what about us? Prabhupada said, you have Guru. So there is no difference. He is the external manifestation of Guru who will take us to Krishna. So here Devahuti is telling your lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance. Because you are my transcendental I, which by your mercy I have attained after many, many births. This also shows the great eagerness of Devahuti that she wants to be delivered, which is a very important aspect for a sadhaka who wants to go back to Godhead, is how much eager one is. And we see eagerness. When one is eager, then one will be very inquisitive. One would like to know everything as it is. And we see the same inquisitiveness in all the great souls, how to make progress, what I may be doing wrong. That eagerness is a very key aspect. We see that in Arjuna. Every now and then he's like, Krishna, what about this? Krishna, how can one know you at the time of death? um, Krishna, explain three modes of material nature. Krishna, how do I understand I'm in three modes? Krishna, how do I get out of these three modes? Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So it's like, Krishna, can you show me that form where I can see all the opulences? So very inquisitive, and we see the same inquisitiveness between in Parikshit Maharaj. There are, like in second canto I was recently reading, and there is a whole chapter in the first, there is a whole chapter by on the questions asked by Sonak Rishi. And here actually after Kardamuni left, how this chapter begins, 25th, is it begins with Sonak Rishi asking Sutta Goswami, please tell everything about what did Kapila Muni do? What did he tell Devahuti? So there is that kind of eagerness which makes the heart very receptive of transcendental knowledge. So there are various levels in which one can hear Shrimad Bhagavatam, but how much we will absorb Shrimad Bhagavatam will depend upon one's eagerness. For example, it can be okay, it's Bhagavatam, let us see, okay, it's nice. But then on another level, when there is eagerness, then one will be very attentive. It is described in first chapter Shrimad Bhagavatam that Shrimad Bhagavatam should be heard attentively and submissively for the effect to take place. Attentively and submissively. And I mean, we can imagine how Shrimad Bhagavatam can, if we so desire, transport us to a spiritual plane. From the perspective, imagine that we are sitting as the audience where the Lord Kapila Muni is speaking and Devahuti is listening. And then we are eager, okay, what did Kapila Muni say? What did Devahuti inquire? So it's just a matter of how eager we are. And that's why Srila Prabhupada said, taking association of Srimad Bhagavatam is like personally taking association of the Lord, the various incarnations of the Lord, and the pure devotees of the Lord. While reading the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, we can either be on the bank of Ganges, listening from Sukadev Goswami, or Nemesharanya from Sutta Goswami, or here listening from Kapila Muni. And this also shows the humbleness of Devahuti, who is, she is not telling that I am in any way qualified devotee. Now it is described that she was a pure devotee, how it is described. And Kardama Muni was a pure devotee, and because they both were pure devotees of the Lord, and Manu was a pure devotee, we know he is one of the Mahajans, Manu, and this is Manu's daughter. She was a pure devotee, and Kadava Muni was a pure devotee, and because of that, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared from Devahuti and Kadava Muni. But we see her taking a very humble position, and she is telling that I have been covered by ignorance. And the next verse we will see tomorrow, she says, I have been covered by your Maya. I have been covered by illusory energy. So we see that those who are um, like mature devotees, they don't say that I am free from material energy, or but they always take a humble position. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur is like in such a mood, very instructive for all of us. Gopina Mama Nivedana Suno Vishai Durjana Sada Kamarata Kichu Nahi Mora Guna Gopina. So here Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling, please hear my prayer. Mama Nivedana Suno. Vishai Durjana. I am absorbed in sense gratification. Same thing we see here, Devahutis mentioning that I am absorbed in sense gratification because of ignorance. Um, Vishai Durjana Sada Kamarata. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling, I am always overtaken by lust. Sada Kamarata. Kichu Nahi Mora Guna. I have um, no guna. I have no qualities. Um, and in this song, Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya also same principle is give me a mercy, aspect of your mercy, dear Shila Gurudev. So here Devahuti is also describing about mercy, and she is telling, um, you are my transcendental I, which by your mercy I have attained after many, many births. So this is also described in the beginning of our Krishna consciousness. We try our best and we think we can make it, and then time passes, and then we realize that, oh, actually not much is happening. Time is passing by, but where I want to be, I'm not able to absorb myself there. Um, and then the more time passes, the more we realize less time is remaining, and the more we realize the how far I am from where I want to be, and then naturally the desperation comes that we beg for mercy, and also naturally it's like we hear from Sanatana Goswami that as we make progress, humility becomes deeper and deeper. It's a sign, and Prabhupada Maharaj was mentioning when we become pure devotees, then we develop true humbleness. Another thing that Prabhupada mentions in the purport is the cause of our suffering is ignorance. Now, this is very nice. Actually, everything that Srila Prabhupada says is the Vedic scriptures. And this is described by Lord Krishna, that how the cause of our suffering is ignorance. I mean, sometimes we say the cause of our suffering is because of it's a karma phala, it's because of our karma. But then the reason we have karma phala is because of ignorance. Um, because of ignorance, we don't know what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do. Because of ignorance, we identify ourselves with the body and we're trying to find pleasure at the level of body, and then we commit sinful activities. But one who is self-realized, one who is knowledge, naturally identifies himself with the spirit soul, and then try to absorb himself only in Param Dishwani, but the higher pleasure. But the reason we absorb ourselves in lower pleasure because we are pleasure seekers, and we identify ourselves with the body and we try to find pleasure through sense gratification. So that's how it is described that the cause of our suffering is actually ignorance. Um, and one can come out of this ignorance by knowledge. This is from fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. where Lord Krishna says, just like um, the sun dissipates the darkness, likewise, the knowledge that emanates from spiritual master dissipates the ignorance that covers the living entity. This is from fifth chapter, I think verse number 15, 16. And then Krishna further speaks that one who has attained this knowledge will, this verse comes, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Kavi Hastini Suni Chaiva Subhakicha Pandita Samadarshina. He will, one who has that knowledge, he will start seeing all living entities on a Samadarshina, on an equal level. In other words, he will start seeing the spirit soul in um, in all living entities, and he will start seeing Krishna in the heart of all living entities. Um, One thing which I remember, it was mentioned by Shivram Maharaj. He was mentioning that one should follow the great devotees, but one should not imitate the great devotees. And one devotee asked him, Maharaj, how do we understand if we are imitating the great devotees? And Maharaj said one example that we try to imitate great devotees is when we think that I can that Krishna is like seeing Krishna in the heart of all living entities. Maharaj said that is a platform Uttamadhikari, only pure devotees. Uttamadhikari platform actually can see Krishna in the heart of all living entities. But when we haven't attained that stage and we think that I can see Krishna in the heart of all living entities, I mean, actually seeing Krishna in the heart of all living entities is a very advanced stage. Um, I mean, it's like then if we see Krishna in the heart of all living entity, then we see Krishna everywhere. You see your child and you know Krishna, you see Krishna there sitting in the heart of the child. You see anybody walking on the street and you see like um, Krishna is sitting in the heart of all living entity, and we become so absorbed. And I mean, at a Uttamadhikari stage, those who reach there, they become so absorbed that they see Krishna everywhere. I mean, um, sometimes people say, Krishna is everywhere. Then why do I need to go to temple? This is again a question of duplicity and a question of imitation, where one is trying to imitate great souls. It is not possible. By speaking, we cannot see Krishna in the heart of every living entity. By hearing, we cannot see. The scriptures are very advanced because they are spoken from a pure devotional platform. But then we have to qualify ourselves to be able to follow them. I mean, sometimes just the thought that to see Krishna in the heart of all living entities is such a liberating concept and such a hope giving concept to me. Like, if we can come to that stage of whoever we see Krishna in the heart of all living entities. Obviously, when we are seeing Krishna in the heart of all living entity, we won't discriminate whether it's a dog or dog eater, because or whether one is clean or unclean, or whether one is man or woman, or whatever one's state is. It's a very, very divine concept to be able to see Krishna in the heart of all living entities. I mean, we know Krishna says, Hridaya Arjuna Tishtati, I am seated in the heart of all living entities. So one thing that Bhagavad Gita explains in the fourth chapter, where Krishna describes various sacrifices, and then he says the purpose of all the sacrifice is in knowledge. And then he says, Tatvidi Pranipratina Pariprashtina Sevaya. There he says, just approach a spiritual master and learn from him. They can give you the understanding because they are seers. Tattva Darshina, they have seen the truth. And then next four verses 35 to 39 in fourth chapter, Krishna describes what is the effect of one who has actually received the knowledge from spiritual master. And Krishna says, having attained this knowledge, this 35th verse, having attained this knowledge from the mouth of a pure devotee, spiritual master, one never deviates from the truth. If one actually attains that knowledge, one never deviates from the truth. One is not covered by illusion. and one sees the Lord in the heart of all living entities. This, I think, 38. Um, so this is, but then Krishna also says that having received the knowledge, one realizes the knowledge gradually by practice of devotional service. So one thing is, we hear from Guru Maharaj here, Prabhupada says the spiritual master removes the ignorance through transcendental knowledge, but hearing transcendental knowledge does not give us the realization. Um, but through devotional service, one can realize the knowledge that is received from spiritual master, and the test that one has received the knowledge is one starts seeing Krishna in the heart of all living entity. So all these concepts. Uh, mm, mm, Here, one thing which is very nice is the glory of spiritual master, and it is said, um, this glory of spiritual master is he will take us to the other side, which is a pure life, which is a life in, basically a life in love of Krishna, a life of absorption in transcendental glories, form, pastimes of Krishna, a life of service to Krishna, pure devotional service to Krishna. And what separates us from that life and this life in the material world, where we are referred to as conditioned souls, is an ocean. And the spiritual master will help us to cross over the ocean. And how this is the mercy of spiritual master, and how he help us cross over this ocean is um, through knowledge and dedication. One important principle that comes here is one should be very faithful and chaste to one spiritual master. Another thing scripture says is one should not be envious of one spiritual master. One should worship one spiritual master as an Ishtadev. Ishtadev, like, in India, people have Ishtadev. So for us, it is mentioned, 11th canto Bhagavatam describes one should worship one spiritual master like an Ishtadev. Then it also says, because all the devatas reside in the body of spiritual master. Um, so worshipping spiritual master is sufficient. Um, and then it also says that one should develop love and affection for one spiritual master. Um, 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 and spiritual master should not be seen as limited by body and space. He should be seen as on a completely spiritual platform. Um, One incident that comes to me is the time of departure of Srila Prabhupada when he was in Vrindavan, 1977. And when he was departing, then all the devotees were very much, there were hundreds of devotees by the side of Srila Prabhupada. And when everybody heard the news across the world, many people, many devotees thought it's all over. Our Krishna consciousness is over, because everybody was like depending that only because of Srila Prabhupada we are able to make progress. And after Srila Prabhupada's departure, how will ISKCON go on? How will we go on? Now there will be no more books. Um, um, there will be no more guidance, no more inspiration, because they were doing everything for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. They would take great pleasure in reporting, Prabhupada, this happened, this happened. Like so many letters will go to Prabhupada. Prabhupada will take great pleasure in reading those letters. And they would serve enthusiastically, because they know Prabhupada will come here and will show Prabhupada. So many constructions, so many temples, so many devotees joining. Everything was done for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. And when there was this huge feeling of vacancy, then Srila Prabhupada departed. And everybody thought like, that's that we don't know if we will be able to survive, what will happen to ISKCON, what will happen to us. And they were naturally very kind of not so many years. Some of them had spent 10 years, but most of them were like 2, 3, 4 years. And all of them were Srila Prabhupada disciples. There was this feeling. But soon after Srila Prabhupada's departure, they realized that Srila Prabhupada is still there with us. Srila Prabhupada is still guiding us. Srila Prabhupada is there through his books. He is there through, he is there sitting in our heart. We can still do things to please him because he is there. He is reciprocating. Sometimes many devotees mention that after Srila Prabhupada's departure, when they needed help, Srila Prabhupada would come in their dream and give them guidance. So then gradually over a period of time, they realized that nothing changed. We can still do everything for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. We can still relate to him. He is still listening to us in the form of his deities. There are many stories of how deity of Srila Prabhupada reciprocated with devotees coming in a dream. Malti Prabhu has a reciprocation with Srila Prabhupada deity in Vrindavan. And there's so many stories of how Prabhupada deity reciprocated. Then they realized that Prabhupada actually was not bound to the body. But Prabhupada is there who has taken our responsibility to take us back home, back to Godhead. And it's such a hope-giving statement because if we just forget everything and for a moment think about, okay, I don't know if I will go back home, back to Godhead or not, but my Guru Maharaj has taken my responsibility. If I just remain sincere, if I chant 16 rounds, follow 4 regulative principles, and try to be sincere, then my Guru Maharaj has taken my responsibility and he will keep guiding me and take me back home, back to Godhead. He will take me back home, back to Godhead. So also there are many stories, and also we hear from Brihad Bhagavatamrita that after one departs the body, what comes to one rescue is the spiritual master. And that after departure of the body, still all the knowledge will remain with us because body is jada, made of panchadhatu, earth, water, fire, air, ether, does not have consciousness. It takes the consciousness with the consciousness that we live in. The body takes the consciousness. That's why pure devotee's body is also spiritual because completely used in service of the Lord. Just like anything used in service of the Lord becomes spiritual by nature. Like Yogesh Prabhuji says, this table is used to serve Tulasi, so table has become spiritualized. So anything used, likewise this body, although it's dead matter actually, earth, water, fire, air, ether, when used in the service of the Lord becomes spiritualized. But ultimately when we leave the body, we remember everything. We remember all that we have heard, all that we have read. And who comes to our rescue is spiritual master. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share. Let's see if there is any discussion.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful class. Especially, thank you for emphasizing on eagerness to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. A lot of time we take it for so granted, reading and hearing, okay, but thank you for emphasizing that how eager we should be if he actually wants to make progress.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And I also feel eagerness is something that can be mimicked in a way like Prabhupada said, make it or fake it. And we can try to use our intelligence to develop the eagerness. For example, like suppose like second canto we hear Chatushloki Bhagavatam. So we see Narayan is speaking to Brahma And then can be like, it can be a intellectual eagerness, like, oh, what did Narayan speak? What did he say? Or how did Brahma react? Oh, when he heard these four verses, what did he say to Narad Muni? Because he gave the same knowledge to Narad Muni, but he spoke the four Chatushloki Bhagavatam that Brahmaji heard from Narayan. Brahmaji spoke to Narad Muni in 10 different instructions. So then how did Brahmaji explain, first of all, what the Chatushloki means? Try to understand. And then how Brahmaji presented what he heard from Narayan in 10 different instructions to Narada. And how these instructions relate to Brahma, how Brahmaji interpreted these four instructions. And then, I mean, just give an example, but like, okay, Bhishma Dev is dying and he is in front of Lord Krishna. What did he say? What question did Rishi Maharaj ask? What did Bhishma Dev reply? What happened? So it can be intellectual also, Prabhuji, I feel. And either ways, it helps. Okay, thank you. Is there anything else?
Thank you, Prabhu. I mean, these are things that, I mean, this is another way of relating more, intellectually, and hopefully, someday intellectual will transform to the real essence.
Well,
For me, I'm talking about.
we know the principle, fake it to make it. And I heard from like my spiritual master, he says, while listening Srimad Bhagavatam, we can imagine ourselves sitting on the bank of Ganges, listening from Sukadev Goswami with 60,000 sages, and we are eager. What did he speak? Same principle applies to all Vedic literature.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavarpana Prabhuji. For our enthusiasm is getting reduced is due to the age or due to the mistake that I'm doing?
One time I'm speaking to myself, Mataji. One time I heard Bhakti Tirth Maharaj saying that if our enthusiasm is reducing because of some mistakes, generally speaking, it won't be because of age. If it was because of age, how is it our Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual master so enthusiastic? And enthusiasm is also engagement in service and eagerness to engagement in service, eagerness to grow. And where our enthusiasm comes from, it comes from our holy name, basically. When our holy name is absorbed, we become very enthusiastic because we want to maintain that. But when our holy name does not reciprocate, then our enthusiasm goes down. So Mataji, I don't think it's because of age. Yes, because of age, maybe we may not be physically very active, but enthusiasm is not dependent upon physical activity, Mataji. Enthusiasm is a state of consciousness. Like Prabhupada explains enthusiasm as, he says, um, endeavoring with intelligence. How can I spread more? How can I, what kind of service I can do? So, did I address Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. I will focus on chanting more. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Well, we are all focusing on the same thing. The root cause of everything is chanting only. One thing I heard is reading helps in enthusiasm. One thing I heard is having a clarity of goal brings enthusiasm. of like, if we know, like for example, in this material world also, if we relate, if somebody is fighting for a manager position, like it's commonly seen, or some higher post or some hike, then one tries to work very enthusiastically, um, um, does whatever it takes to actually get what one desires. So having the clarity of goal, where I want to be, where I am, and what I need to do to get there. And we see people have a strong desire. This first thing, they have to make progress in their careers also. A strong desire and endeavor in that direction. And that keeps them very like enthusiastic, working early in the morning, working till late evening, trying to do everything the best, because they're career oriented. So likewise, we are also career oriented, and our career is having a personal relationship with Krishna. This is the career we want. Um, and the path is more and more sadhana, more and more devotional service, and also clarity of the path helps a lot. This I read, clarity of the path gives us eagerness, because if we see like we don't know what to do and if it's a black box, then we'll be less enthusiastic. But if we know what is the next step I want to attain, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, having clarity of where I am and having clarity of where I want to be next with respect to consciousness. What is my consciousness now? What I want my consciousness to be transformed to, and then working toward that goal. Like, we need to be goal oriented. Like Vaisheshika Prabhu says, goal oriented devotional service drives us in our enthusiasm. And naturally, when we don't have goals, um, we will become relaxed. I'm just sharing other points other than something practical to increase enthusiasm. Like one example I was hearing from one devotee. So he was chanting 32 rounds. This is one brahmachari, no names. It's a personal discussion. One brahmachari was chanting 32 rounds, and he was getting up at like 4:30 a.m. Then he heard a lecture. He was inspired to chant 48 rounds suddenly. I mean, this is Krishna's mercy also. So he was just sharing about Prabhuji, how goals help. I mean, I shared it recently also. So he was sharing, now I have to chant 48 rounds. Now I know that my day is busy because he's a brahmachari, and he had services in a day. So he thought, well, the only possibility is if I get up like 3 o'clock or 2:45. And then he's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then he started getting up early. And he was sharing, when I did not have that goal, then I was more relaxed. But when I made my goal more stricter, then I know that this is what I have to achieve. And then I have to do, and then I have to find the time, and this is the only option. And then he would do that. But previously, when he was chanting 16 rounds, then their Bangalat is at 5 a.m., then he would get up at 4:45, and he would, I mean, the time will go. But the thing is, goal oriented devotional service helps to push ourselves beyond our limits. Just like people in this material world are pushing themselves more and more. Because why they are pushing? Because they try to show that they are very sincere and their goal is clear. Likewise, we try to show our sincerity by our spiritual practices, by extending ourselves to reach out to more and more people. One thing I heard is just today morning I was hearing a lecture. There is another brahmachari in Chapati, Nitai Charan Prabhu. Very beautiful lecture he gave. So I was hearing him, and he was mentioning that if you bring one person to Krishna consciousness, he says, if you want to be noticed by Krishna, then you preach. And he said, whatever benefit you can get from severe austerities, from lot of charities, from I don't know, he spoke like so many things, whatever we can think of. And then he said, you will get much more attention from Krishna if you bring person to Krishna consciousness, because Krishna is hankering for lifetimes, sitting in the heart in all living entity. He's hankering for unlimited time, that when this living entity will turn towards me, and you go and you make a relationship and you tell that person, please turn toward Krishna. He said, all right, I'll do it. If you say, I will do it. And then he turned toward Krishna, and Krishna looks at you, and Krishna will say, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Mataji, for doing this. So Prabhupada says preaching is like, um, Prabhupada says, we are trying to act for Krishna's welfare. I mean, it was a very striking line, because, who are we to act for Krishna's welfare? But Prabhupada says outreach is like we are trying to act for Krishna's welfare. Um, so, um, higher goals, whatever nourishes us, higher goals, and becoming strict with those goals will help us to advance our consciousness. Teaching really helps. And also, another thing that really helps, I feel like, is prayers. I have seen like prayers rendered in a mood of humbleness, prayers rendered with sincerity, never ever go in vain. Every single time they are heard, no matter how difficult the situation is. Going in front of Radha Gopijana Vallabha, bowing down, um, and humbly folding our hands and say, Krishna, please help me. I'm going through this struggle. Please help me come out of it. And if genuinely we are going through a trouble, whatever it is, and we genuinely seek out the shelter of Lord Krishna, it will be gone next day. Because I mean, Krishna is waiting when we will turn to him anyways. Krishna said, "No, don't worry. You come to me, I'll take care of you. You just have to come to me." So we just need to approach Krishna for, and even in my own experience, most of the time, the mistakes are uh, like not purposeful. Like I remember this, I'll take 2 more minutes. It's a very simple example. I spoke on Shivratri, on glories of Lord Shiva, and we present Shivratri from a Vaishnava perspective. I mean, he's a great devotee at the same time. So I said something, some a pastime of Prabhupada. I said basically, I heard it from Giriraj Maharaj, so I shared that. And one devotee didn't like it. I mean, he's not in Bhagavatam class, so I can say. And then I don't know what happened. And my next chanting was affected. Like, oh, very bad chanting today. 2 3 days, all this, very feeling very low, um, emptiness, feeling like, what is happening? What went wrong? What went wrong? And I could not understand. And then somehow that struggle phase continued. Then next week he came, and then he said, probably my whole week I was very angry at you. I said, thank you for sharing me. Otherwise, you would not have shared, and you would have continued remaining angry with me. Then I said, bro, why were you angry with me? He said, because you set that example of Lord Shiva. Then I said, Prabhu, this was the intention, and I think I should not have spoken that. I made a mistake. And then he was pacified. So, and it's, many times when we speak, we make a mistake because it's so sensitive. Anybody can become upset any point of time. Very sensitive subject matter. And doesn't matter, our intention may not be to hurt somebody. It happens. Like Rupa Goswami, it happened. He was meditating and he was smiling, and somebody thought he's smiling, and Rupa Goswami lost his meditation. So it's a very clear example from our Goswamis, clear teaching from our Goswamis. So many times, many things happen that are not in our hand. You may send a message, you may say something, and we don't know. So it's not like offenses we do necessarily out of, purposefully want to offend somebody, or necessarily act angrily. Even if you don't have any specific intention, things happens. It's but one thing that helps in all circumstances is going to Krishna and depending on Krishna, because what other option we have? Many times things are quite unknown. Krishna, I'm going to this struggle. Krishna, please help me. Krishna, please help me come out of this situation. Is that all right, Mataji?
Sure, Prabhuji, sure. That I'll try my best, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anything else anyone has? I think I spoke a little more than what I should have spoken. If I spoke anything inappropriate, please forgive me as a humble servant. Thank you very much for joining. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Syamanand Krishna Prabhu ki jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Mataji, I'm still here.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I had a question. It was about how do we, like when we are doing our services and that time it is little bit easier to stay present in the moment, right? How do we stay, like how do we stay present in the moment, involved in meditation on Krishna all day long? How do we come out of our thoughts going here and there and 24 hours we cannot be reading and hearing, right?
Yes.
We have to constantly remind ourselves, like when we are taking rest, we say, we pray to Krishna and try to sleep. But in general, what should we do, Prabhuji? Simple tips, if possible, that helps us to keep our consciousness right.
And focused on Krishna.
Yes.
Well, one thing, I mean, this is a corner case, and then I will see what I can speak on this. I don't know. But one thing that came to my mind is, again, this one devotee from Chopati. I was listening to his class and he was mentioning his mind was very, very disturbed. He was feeling a lot of anger. Now, this may not be a question, but I'm just sharing for my own benefit. He was feeling very angry. His mind was presenting, why this, this. And there was a whole war going on in his mind. And then he said, one of the service I had is for 4 or 5 years, he said he did that services. He has to go to the altar and take the picture of the Gopinath and put it in the community. So that was one service he was doing. So he went on this day and he saw the smile on. He was actually glorifying Krishna's smile. It's one of the song in Bhagavatam where devotees are glorifying Krishna's smile and how it removes the false pride, Krishna's smile. So he was glorifying Krishna's smile. And he was mentioning that when I went to the altar, take the picture, I saw the smile of Krishna. And he said, I don't know what happened. I felt like Krishna is telling that, you are going through so many trouble. And he's smiling. Then he told Krishna, why are you smiling so much? There is so much trouble I'm going through and you're smiling. And then he said, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, the whole mental loop disappeared. He said, everything finished. And I was just looking, oh, Krishna, you're so beautiful. Krishna, you have such a beautiful smile. He said he was basically glorifying Krishna's smile. And he said, we don't know the power of Krishna's smile. Just like devotees eternally, when actually it is described, the most attractive part of Krishna is Krishna's smile. So he was mentioning there is no difference. I maybe understand there is no difference between Lord Krishna's smile in front of his devotees in Vrindavan and then Gopijana Vallabha's smile in front of us. Prabhupada said, all my temples are Vrindavan because Krishna is there, Radharani is there. And everyone is there. So all my temples are Vrindavan. So same reciprocation, just like if you're in Vrindavan, same reciprocation we can have, but I mean, he may not walk, he may not talk externally, but then he does everything subtly to us. So everything is the same. So it's just some thought came. Now coming back to your question, Mataji, how can we remain more absorbed in our Krishna consciousness? I mean, I'm not absorbed myself, so I don't know if I can answer that question.
But Prabhuji, definitely, I think because of the ashram also, it makes a difference. You have a better chance of keeping yourself more absorbed, for sure, and you do that. So I really wanted to take some tips, like how Prabhupada said, Grahasthas can do it. How can we do it, Prabhuji?
I feel like one thing that will naturally happen is we will, I mean, I'm not at this stage, but we will mentally chant Hare Krishna. I feel like that's one way when we are doing various things, or when we are walking, or when we are doing some activity, maybe the mind may chant. That's one way. Now, again, I'm not at that stage, but I heard this is something that gradually happens, is mental chanting.
We will have to put effort for that, right, Prabhuji?
It will naturally vibrate. Your tongue will vibrate, Mataji. I mean, from what I've heard, you will naturally you will see, oh, I'm not doing anything. And Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. You will not say, even the tongue may not vibrate, but your mind may chant. That's why they say mental chanting. And we see even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu want us to do that. He said, Kirtaniya Sada Hari. And we see Bhagavad Gita, Krishna wants us to do that. Satatam Kirti Antoma. So we see Prabhupada would emphasize that one should chant. Prabhupada said, yeah, if you cannot, don't worry about sleep. Prabhupada said, first try to chant when you are awake. So we hear repeatedly from Mahaprabhu, Lord Krishna, and Srila Prabhupada guidance. Many places he says in purport, we should continuously chant. So, I mean, I'm not at this stage definitely and very far away, but that's one way I think as devotees progress, it manifests in their heart. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says chanting is not something from the lips. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says chanting is something that descends from Goloka into the heart of the living entity, and the heart of the living entity makes the tongue vibrate. So, I mean, we're just talking about the principle here that this is a state, like as I said, it's very nice to have a desire, because everything will happen only by a desire. And if your desire will make endeavor in that specific direction, if you make endeavor, Yatama Prapadante, Krishna may reciprocate. So desire of a state of consciousness we want to achieve is very, very helpful. Like what I want to think, what I want to become absorbed in. That's why I said earlier, an understanding of where I am, where I want to be, um, keeps a goal in front of us, and that will naturally go, I need that, I need that, I need that. Oh Krishna. And then once you become more eager, it will become relatively approachable. Um, Another thing that I personally do, Mataji, is just keep myself busy, whatever the service is. And if my mind cannot be busy with a particular service, then I either, like, some service does not require, like I just have to drive somewhere, or I just have to stand, maybe wait for somebody to come and approach us. For if there is some service like that, then actually chanting helps. If there is some service like taking care of deities, or normal routine of getting showers and other things, then either Vaishnava bhajans or hearing, whatever we can focus more on, or cooking, some kind of kirtans or some kind of lecture. So some kind, I mean, we are taking help externally to absorb our mind, and Prabhupada said this is training. So Prabhupada says Krishna conscious is all about training, and we are training ourselves to remember Krishna, because naturally it's not our state to remember Krishna. But to go to Vrindavan, they remember Krishna all the time. So we have to get there, and we see that 99% is our endeavor. And what I was talking about, the holy name descends in the heart and vibrate, that's like Krishna's mercy, that is 1%. We cannot, I mean, Krishna may give it when he sees that constantly this is what we want to do. So even it is said, if you remember a particular verses, if you remember anything you heard, this is also absorption on a mental level. Anything connected to Krishna is good. And this is what I can think of.
Thank you. No, it is helpful, Prabhu. It is really helpful. Thank you.
Whatever. Don't know how much I can do. It requires my own sincerity to be able to really answer any question also. Yeah, that's what I can offer. Sorry. Thank you.
No, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll end here. Then with pranams, Prabhuji Syamanand. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.